It will be a long Polish story, so I will read, because a context also will be very wide. I will not only talking about the Polish victims and about the situation in Poland, but I will try to put this in more wide context of European Union and the NATO. So, go on. I represent the Polish Association of Victims of Mind Control. Our full name is StopZ, Stop Organized Electronic Torture. As there are many indications that we are all guinea pigs in inhuman, secret and illegal experiments carried out in our country by the military and special services. We have been tested on with remote neural weapon technology, brutally interfering with our physiology, emotions, and cognitive processes. Many people have been connected to a brain-computer interface and are monitored 24 hours a day using satellite radars. Many of us can constantly hear commands in their heads, and in some cases, those commands are identical. Many different technologies are being used against us, depending on the period in which we were implanted, or on the research programs we were included in. We found each other over the internet, and when the first reports of people affected by this tragedy appeared on the independent internet television, a real avalanche began. It turned out that the problem affects all the regions of Poland, including our compatriots living abroad. And the number of signals from people recognizing the same or similar symptoms in their bodies indicated quite a large scale of the experiments being carried out. They contacted us in despair, helpless strangers, asking for any advice or help. That's why we decided to join our forces in a legally established association, to share the information and to fight for a ban on inventing, producing, and using such weapons. But first of all, to support each other. Also, we were strangers at first. We became friends. StopZ has currently 40 members. We have been contacted by circa 150 TIs, and our support group on Facebook consists of 250 people. But many more victims of this secretive harassment have contacted us. They were often bullied, but many of them, to the skepticism of their close circles, simply preferred not to reveal themselves. We understand their choices, and we also act on their behalf. Our strategy is very simple. We shared our stories and the experiences on the issue of keeping ourselves safe and protected against the radiation that attacked us, and soon it turned out that in fact it is one and the same story, told in several variants. Also, the evidence we have gathered suggests it is a coordinated action against ordinary, innocent citizens. As an association, based on our testimonies and gathered in evidence, we intend to launch legal procedures that will recognize us as victims of state terrorism. Some of our members have already made such attempts, but the court rejected their group petition twice, which is why they recently appealed to the European Court of Justice in Strasbourg. We hope that we will be able to achieve much more as an association. The fact how much we are being attacked as a group is the best evidence for the legitimacy of our chosen strategy. Our computers are destroyed, our phone calls blocked, and every person who undertakes any task must be prepared to face exceptionally ruthless attacks with electromagnetic weapons targeted at them and their families. This is particularly dramatic in the case of mothers who often drop out of cooperation for the sake of their children's safety. However, regardless of the degree of repression and in spite of everything, we will strive to reveal the perpetrators of this inhuman treatment and the true motives of their actions. And that is the topic of this presentation. Combined together, our stories create a coherent picture. Also, some of our colleagues were implanted by the Soviet Secret Service in the 80s. For the overwhelming majority of us, these stories start in 2005 or later. Many people say they began to notice some changes in 2007, but the increase in severity of symptoms involving their families and electronic devices dysfunctions happening around them began in 2010. When asked about the circumstances directly preceding those events, they usually mention two things: a visit at the dentist or in a hospital, and renovation at the neighbor's apartment or in the common parts of their residential building. What is interesting, there is a regularity occurring in the professional profiles of those neighbors. Significantly more often, there are police officers, their families, or electricians. Finally, a large group of victims are former soldiers, military men families, and people living near to the barracks, research institutes, etc. Since the beginning of this systematic harassment, many people, especially the young ones, have decided to leave the country, but that did not free them from trouble. They can still hear voices in their heads, only now in two languages. So who and why does this to us? Unexpectedly, the answer to these questions came up in April 2012 from the Minister of the Interior and Administration, Jacek Cichocki. His official statement was that, alarmed by the new police commander about the involvement of his subordinate departments in the immoral, unethical experiments related to the INECT European Safety Programme, he forbade the police and special services to participate in this type of projects, and that he would aim at suspending the research in this area. A Polish university, the University of Science and Technology, located in Krakow, was the leader of this project, which aimed at testing this on a large scale on the occasion of the European Football Championship, Euro 212, and contained elements of remote reading of the intentions of danger behavior in the urban space. Public opinion took the minister's decision with a great relief, but it soon became clear that the suspension by the Polish government of the controversial research and development programs in the areas such as cognitive science, artificial intelligence, cybernetics, electronics and robotics would expose our country to huge financial penalties. EU and NATO stated that they have invested large amounts of money in the research conducted over the years, and despite the pressure from many opinion formers, the minister backed out from his statement. Reportedly, it was on the request of a group of people sincerely concerned with the safety of the state. They only created the board of ethics consisting mainly of scientists. In this situation, the members of the opposition appealed to the government to call for a special secret session of the Special Forces Committee, where its members, having the highest degree of access to classified information, could receive comprehensive information on the nature and scope of the controversial research. They were refused, citing the secrets of the defense of our allies. Let us try to understand who is behind all that and why the officially elected representatives of the nation cannot even find out what is happening in the laboratories of their own country. Thanks to this silence, Poland is becoming a leader in designing, testing, and implementation of the means of mass population control. Our state relies on cooperation between the university, research institutions, and the company from the arms industry. It creates various platforms and innovation clusters and uses the extraordinary achievements of our scientists in order to keep a good position on the global markets in the areas such as radars and all the techniques of radar equipment, radio-electronic weapons, microwave weapons, laser-directed energy weapons, various non-lethal weapons, monitoring systems using unmanned platforms like the popular drones, and multi-factor systems for remote monitoring of human vital functions. We invest huge amounts of money in anticipation of billions of dollars in profits in the name of the New World ideology, which is summarized in the triad: steering equal control equal security. And a great asset in the fight for this market may be the possibility of unpunished prototype testing on their own population. In 2006, the Polish government disbanded a group of the communist roots military intelligence responsible for many economic crimes, illegal arms trade, and cooperation with international terrorists and native gangsters. And all this in the times when Poland was already a free country. The official board of inquiry has identified these services as a criminal group, but its member, using a classic stay-behind formation, found well-paid jobs, mainly in the arms industry and energy companies. In opinion of many, they continue ruling Poland from the back seat. They were probably responsible for providing the secret prisons in Poland to the CIA, where torturing the alleged terrorist was also a part of psychological research program. Reportedly, they were testing the ability to cause a forced helplessness syndrome. We feel that we participate in quite a similar program in a prison without bars, which makes use of remote means of influence. Now the question, is this a case of a severe pathology of a post-totalitarian corrupted state? Not necessarily. From the press reports, we know that our allies have protested against suspending the immoral researchers, thus admitting to financing them. Let us then take a closer look at the nature of relationships our country shares on this field with the transnational organization, like NATO or the EU. Since 2004, Poland is an EU member and actively participates in all the activities, including the scientific cooperation. In the analysis of this cooperation, I will use a few reports from two independent European institutes, TNI and Statewatch. Their critical opinions were confirmed in a study commissioned by European Parliament. Citizens' Rights and Constitutional Affairs Policy Department has produced a damning indictment of the European Security Research Programme, reiterating and confirming many of findings in Statewatch and TNI earlier Neocon-Opticon report. All these reports tell the story how a small group of military-industrial companies came together to secure substantial research and development subsidies for EU homeland security, and how rapidly their demands have been incorporated into the fabric of the EU security and defense policies. How the decisions take place deep within the corridors of the European Council and Commission, and help to promote own profit-driven agenda of prominent transnational defense and security corporations. With the almost complete marginalization of parliaments, critical NGOs, and of course, without any meaningful public debate about the implementation of all-seeing and all-powerful police state in Europe. To some, the research in security area has felt like an investigation into a multi-billion corporate cap. The Commission has effectively outsourced the strategic development of a 1.4 billion euros for EU research program to a whole unaccountable informal group. The authors of our reports point out that it was possible thanks to two factors, which have determined in this key and sensitive area the policies of European Union. Firstly, because EU followed blindly USA in the application of neoconservative vision of global world. And secondly, because we have adopted in European Union the Israeli model of promotion for own defense industry, which has to generate financial benefits to the state. Thus, paradoxically, we are building Fortress Europe based on foreign models, regardless for our traditions and political culture. Neocon ideology emphasizes both right to limitless profit-making and proactive defense of Western societies and their way of life. It is also notable that now the European security research programs include demonstration projects where prototype security systems are manufactured and tested. Such programs are clearly geared toward a public procurement of security, rather than objective research in the traditional sense. Here I would like to lay a very strong stress on the fact that to reach these objectives, all these research and development programs necessitate an experimentation on human beings. And probably the Polish victims of mind control could be the guinea pigs of some of these quite confidential researches. Through NATO and the other fora, the influence of the USA has grown enormously since 2001. 21 EU member states are in NATO, and most are involved in the different war on terror operations. Informal Future Group proposed that EU needs to create a Euro-Atlantic area of cooperation with the USA in the field of freedom, security, and justice. This would mean the policies affecting the liberties and rights of everyone in Europe would not just be determined in Brussels, but in secret EU-US meetings. The US is subject of special attention, but also Israel. These two countries are always present at the table, with the very powerful voices, with its demand and influence hidden from the public view. It is easy to note a prevalence of Israeli security experts who participated in the 7th European Framework Research Programme under the terms of 2000 Cooperation Agreement. Of 46 security research contracts awarded in the first year of this program, Israeli actors or entities were participating in 10 of the projects, leading 4 of them. Let's examine the purposes of one project led by Tel Aviv University with the support of Turkish School of Economics, the Technical University of Berlin, EFP Consulting Limited, a specialist consultancy based in the UK and Israel, and a very shadowy Polish NGO named European Foundation for Scientific Cooperation. The goal of FESTOS was to identify and assess evolving security threats posed by abuse or inadequate use of emerging technologies, and to propose means to reduce their likelihood. Looking ahead to 2030, the Foresight study would like to identify security threats that could stem from future technologies, including robotics, cognition, new materials, nano and biotechnologies, and construct threat scenarios by analyzing the impact of the identified threats of the background of envisioned security climates. The commentary of Ben Hayes, author of Neoconopticon report, is crushing. He remarks that the irony of security research into the threat from security research is presumably lost on the architectures of the security search program. Most of the documents elaborated are not available for the public, but the final report presents 10 alerts for the future, which are the examples of 33 emerging technologies examined by the team of FESTOS. We can see that this program covered a wide range of technologies in various fields, from molecular sensors to brain implants and radio telepathy, from cloud computing through cyborg insects to medical nanobots. Let's see some of them. Here you can see that not only humans, not only the guinea pigs, not only the rabbits, but also the insects will be controlled through implanted electronics connected to their nervous system. Foresight for potential threats. It is conceivable that cyborg insects could be used by perpetrators for harming people, spying, or other malicious actions. And here we are really in the heart of our subject. FESTOS emitted another alert: nanotechnology-enabled brain implants. Various biomedical devices implanted in the central nervous system could control motor disorders or translate willful brain processes into specific actions by the control of external devices. Foresight for potential threats. If abused, enhancing brain implants could be used for thought or behavior control of people, brainwashing, causing social unrest, violence, etc. It could also equip criminals or terrorists with super mental power. It is really important because you will see that it is not only the scientific program, but can have the very concrete applications. Now we will tell about the role of NATO. The politics of Ronald Reagan, the former president of the US, played a very big role in the victory of solidarity and the fall of the post-Yalta order in Europe. That is why, to this day, the Polish political elite and the majority of the public see NATO and the United States as the ultimate guardians of our security in Europe. Polish governments have struggled for the status of the most faithful ally of the US in this part of the world, often unwilling to notice how one-sided the commitment is. I mentioned the alleged CIA prison in Poland before, and we all freshly remember the role of Polish politicians in the Ukrainian crisis. We participate alongside the United States in several missions of the war on terror, and we persistently strive for having elements of US missile defense shield installed in Poland. When we build a platform to implement innovative military technology, we are proud to emphasize that it will be the future DARPA. Recently, in the framework of Polish-American bilateral memorandum, we have also opened our market for American arms industry and allowed US entities to conduct research and development programs in our country. The economic threats that come from it were protested against, but no one noticed that the Department of Defense may now hire private research companies in Poland, for example from BICS sector, for testing the latest toys from the Pentagon. There are also, I forgot it, to show you the poster, the official poster of Festos program. It is a very important warning from the team of Festos. Don't slumber in the face of emerging technologies. They might catch you by surprise. I think that all TIs know a lot about this. But sorry for this interruption. But now we will also talk about the other aspects of collaboration between Poland and USA. There are also serious reasons to believe that there is an extraterritorial intercept base of the echelon system in Poland. Officially, it is a border service storehouse because the building is located close to the border we share with the region of Kaliningrad. However, the unprecedented counterintelligence protection and the fact that a film about this facility made by the regional television was literally arrested and the journalist thrown out of work indicates that perhaps some secrets of our allies are being protected here. Poland is also a country in which the special forces install the greatest amount of wiretaps with their citizens. The numbers are multiple times higher than in the statistics from other EU countries. Let us recall documents revealed by Edward Snowden. Washington Post has reported that there is one country in the world which is of particular interest to the NSA in the field of electronic surveillance. The US government, referring to a strategically special nature of this case, forced the newspaper to withhold the name of the country. Was it Hawaii, as the public opinion would suggest back then, or was it Poland? And if so, what could be the purpose of such action? Secrets again. Finally, the most important thing. Since 2011, wave of suicide repetitively passed through Poland. And suddenly, we found ourselves in this regard at the forefront of the global list. Noteworthy is the fact that more and more often the suicides are committed for no particular reason, and even without any symptoms preceding them. What's more, it was not uncommon that within 2 or 3 days, in a small village or quarter streets in the city, completely unrelated to each other, and unaware that similar tragedy happening a few blocks away, a few people would decide to take this dramatic step. The resuscitation councils sitting were held on that occasion. They even called for exorcists, but no one was able to determine the cause of this epidemic of suicides. We believe that our members' experiences of mind control can shed some light on this phenomenon. For a long time, some of us would hear constantly repeated commands like, kill yourself, your life is worth nothing, or threats like, we'll kill you tomorrow. They could hear it. But what about the people who have a similar content implemented to their subconscious subliminally? Therefore, I will ask another question. Is someone testing on Poles some kind of a neural weapon capable of triggering extreme behaviors on a large scale? Impossible? Let's see if such weapons exist, who is the owner, and above all, what can it be used for? This is a website of Air Force University. The list above this list above show some tools, some instruments for the enslavement of everybody. I will cite you to scientists who worked as a conceptors of this kind of weapons. The first one, John David Norton, worked as neural weapon designer at Lockheed Martin. In his correspondence with his friend Duncan Lorry, he wrote, "So even a person wouldn't do something based on his personality? The key is to reset or disengage the person's personality, his free will, and then repeatedly train either consciously or non-cognitively the person's brain to fire relentlessly such phase lock-looped circuits to the point where you insert a new personality that acts upon the impulses emanating from the sex or violence or religious circuits. You end up with a sex offender, a serial killer, a religious zealot wherein suicide is an option, or any combination, the three. What is? The internet address? You put just university reflexive control, because reflexive control, it was the concept elaborated by Soviet scientists. And they judged that it is so important and so dangerous that in 2000 they shared this concept with the American scientists to deactivate the bomb. But then the American scientists have elaborated this concept so with the denomination of perception management. Perception management can be quite benefic, but it can be also really the manner to enslave us. So now the last citation, yes, no, only one minute, Peter. Our second witness is Yair Sharan, director of Tel Aviv University's Interdisciplinary Center of Technology Analysis and Forecasting. And dear friends, Yair Sharan was the coordinator of FESTOS, the European Research Program. Interviewed by the Register, he told that soon we will have the recruitment of huge number of suicidal candidates, the really human bombs, elaborated by mind control techniques. In his opinion, brain chip implants could create a more obedient servant than conventional techniques like hypnosis. And he asks, imagine that this suicide bomber is remote controlled and cannot give up, even if he wants. No comments. Thank you.